I see it's 11 o'clock. We're waiting for one more committee member and our council. So I'd like to give them a couple minutes.
Public Wi-Fi appropriate if I were to pull up files?
Yeah.
Hi, Paul. I'm not sure if you can hear me or not. I have to move you to panelists. So I think there's something you need to do on your end.
Kathy, can you tell if Sharon's trying to get in?
No, no. Oh, there she is now.
Hello,
Hello?
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
We're just waiting for our counsel, Paul Ferrara, who will be joining us momentarily, I think.
Those darn attorneys are always late.
Guilty. I plead guilty.
Paul, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I've promoted you to a panelist. I think there's something you need to do on your end. I think they can hear us. We just can't hear them when they're an attendee.
There he is.
Sorry, everyone. I'm not technologically savvy.
That's okay. It's okay. It's good to have our counsel with us. Okay, I'd like to call to order the Ethics Advisory Board meeting of Friday, July 29th, 2022. Welcome, everybody. And I'd note all of the members of the advisory board are here. And we can proceed. Let's see, changes to the agenda. Are there any changes anybody has? Okay. Public comment. I have one blue card. Zach Wynn. If you'd like to address the committee, you'll have 3 minutes, and you, having addressed the legislature before, I'm sure you know the rules.
Good morning. Thank you very much. I'm Zachary Wynn. Having had an opportunity to examine the document that forms the basis of this proceeding, I would like to know the extent and nature of Center for Policing Equity's involvement in the guidance and implementation of the reimagining public safety effort on both a city and county level. Councilperson Brock, who initiated these proceedings, was accidentally invited to a weekly reimagining public safety meeting that was comprised of 5 Center for Policing Equity, 3 City of Ithaca, and 3 county staff members. The Reimagining Public Safety process and the recommendations that were a result of that process are currently being implemented on both the city and county level. And I'm of the belief that the process that created those recommendations itself was contaminated. So as this proceeding continues to move forward, I would just like to request that the city of Ithaca and the county pause implementation of these recommendations until this proceeding is concluded and it is determined whether or not that the recommendations that are currently being implemented are worthy of being implemented, or if they are themselves the result of a contaminated process. With that said, I yield the remainder of my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to address the advisory board? Okay, seeing none. Next item is minutes approval from June 7th, 2022. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes? So we can put it on the floor.
So moved.
Thank you, Gretchen. Could I get a second? Thank you, Katie. Sorry. Any discussion or comment on the minutes? Seeing none, are we ready to vote? I'll call the roll. Sharon?
Yes.
Katie? Brian?
Aye.
Gretchen?
Aye.
And the chair votes yes. So the minutes are approved. I had a couple items of housekeeping I wanted to just advise the board of. At our last meeting, there was a request to see if there was training available from the New York State Comptroller's Office. We've written a letter from June 28th asking for that. We have not received a response, but we made the request. So that might be in the works.
So Rick, so what, there was another thing about the financial forms that I'd ask about also.
Our review.
Yeah, no, I asked whether we could get some examples of financial forms that they are supporting.
Okay. I don't know if we directly asked for that in this letter.
Okay, it was in the minutes, so.
Oh, no, it was here. In addition, the audit report recommended a further definition of expectations and responsibilities for the administration of the annual disclosure statements and careful review of the contents. The county does define expectation and reviews the contents. However, perhaps the procedures and expectations could be better articulated. And we invited them to comment on that. So maybe that's forthcoming.
Okay.
They've had a month.
If we don't hear in a few months, we could rewrite.
Yeah, and we still have a pending bit of business that we need to review the financial disclosures
Yeah.
with county attorney. So we need to take care of that at some point. I had just some other reporting to give you. One is the original complaint was subject to a FOIL request, and it is now public, as you heard on public comment. So that is now in the public domain. Any questions, comments from the board members? No? All right. Why don't we proceed to item 5? We're flying through our agenda. This will probably take a little longer. This is the updates on status of discovery responses. I can certainly review what we've received and what we're waiting to receive. If you want me to go through that, we have, and I have my pile here. Matrix Consulting Group sent us a lot of material. They have a July 6, 2022 letter that responded to the specific questions, but they sent a lot of items as well, the underlying contracts and the work that they did, the work product. So I assume you've all had a chance to look through that. I don't know that a lot of it is pertinent to what we're looking at, but they certainly provided us with a lot of material. I'm proceeding in no particular order other than the pile on my desk. The next response came from Jason Molino, who was the county administrator. And I'm not quite sure what to make of his response, in that he suggests there is a conflict of interest because he and I had a conversation earlier in the spring, because I'd asked him about how did we end up hiring CPE, and we did talk about it. And he responded at that time, and that's the reason I thought it was important that we gave him an opportunity to respond here, but he now says that there's a conflict of interest in that he responded before. So he didn't really reply to what we requested. I think we can get that information from the county, but I don't, again, I don't understand the nature of the conflict of interest other than he doesn't think he should respond at this point.
Rich, could I just interject there?
Sure.
So we voted to do the similar review of the county's participation. And he was the only one on the list of people that we were going to send a request to. So do we need to add other people to the list from the county?
Yeah, that might be number 7 on our agenda, but I think that we could certainly talk about it right now. Given that his request was a dead end, I think we do need to go elsewhere to the county, and I would suggest the current county administrator is probably the right person to now send it to. Yeah.
Right. I just thought, we had to move beyond that point unless we wanted to get deeper in the weeds with Mr. Molino. I don't know if we want to do that.
Yeah, well, I won't say further.
Yeah.
I'll stop. But I think we do want to just ask the county directly. He was the most knowledgeable person because he was in charge at that time, but we'll go elsewhere. We received a response from the Park Foundation. I'll address them next. And they did respond to the questions, but they largely indicated that they were responsible for giving a grant to the Dorothy Cotton Institute. And so it was sort of a pass-through as I read it. So it didn't seem that the Park Foundation was really directly involved. I do note in their attachment, I'm looking for the line item. It's on the second to last page, I believe. On 9/15/21 in non-city grants supporting city priorities, June 2020, March 2022, it shows the grant to the Center for Transformative Action for $60,000. And perhaps a follow-up would be to try to get that grant information, see what it said. Then we received a response from the Horner Law Office. And this, the Horner Law Office is representing the Dorothy Cotton Institute and the Center for Transformative Action, CTA, who is, I believe, the parent of the Dorothy Cotton Institute. And there was a response to the questions, and we can talk about the substance there.
Yeah, I just think they serve as an umbrella for a lot of nonprofit groups that don't have their own 501c3s.
Yeah. So it does seem like that's where the actual grant money was administered. So there may be more we want to get there. We had submitted a request to the city and to various city officials. This is pretty much the same request. As I shared with you the response we got from the city attorney. And as it indicates, the city attorney thinks this is a very burdensome request and that they were unable to respond in time. And he suggested perhaps by August 31st, they could send something. So I don't know what that was. I would say that one Well, perhaps what I should do is read into the record my response back to the city. And so that we'll make that public. I wrote an email to Laura Lewis, the acting mayor. I said, Laura, I've received the below message from your city attorney and expect that his response was prepared at your direction. The clear tenor of his message is one of non-cooperation with the work that the Ethics Advisory Board is required by New York State to undertake. We do not have a choice in whether to investigate. The city does. We will proceed and do the best job that we can, even if the city believes that resisting disclosure to the EAB and instead utilizing its own separately controlled investigation is the better course. Certainly, conducting a separate city investigation will appear to some as duplicative and potentially politically motivated. It is my belief that the EAB will be able to do a faster, more thorough, and more publicly supported investigation if we are able to proceed with the assistance of the city. We would certainly be willing to be reasonable in the time necessary to respond to the EAB if that is the true concern. While litigation discovery responses are typically required in 20 days, we would be willing to extend the deadline to the end of this month. I hope there will be some consideration put towards this approach. I would be glad to have a conversation with you on this matter if you wish to talk about it. Thanks, Rich. And I sent that message. I'm trying to remember the date. I don't have it on this, but I did not receive any response. The end of the month, of course, is Sunday. So perhaps, we'll see something on Monday, but I didn't get any response at all, which is a little troubling.
I thought he said August 31st, though.
He said August 31st. And what I had proposed was, this was, I think, July 7th, maybe.
Yeah.
I said by the end of July. And of course, they'd received the request in June. So there seems to be plenty of time to at least reply to what they could. They've produced nothing so far. And so I'm disappointed. I guess I'm not entirely surprised. And the idea of running their own investigation, which they're funding as a city taxpayer and a county taxpayer, I'm not very happy about paying for this to be done twice. And of course, we don't have discretion, but they do. But they decided that they wanted to hire an outside counsel and do another investigation. I don't have any indication whether that attorney would be sharing information with us or not. I suspect that they won't, but we'll need to proceed as we can. But that's the current situation from the city.
Can I ask Paul a question?
Questions are easy. It's answers that give me difficulty.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, it would seem probably under normal conditions, there would be no communication between their lawyer and you on this issue. I just like to see if you'd reaffirm that. I mean, you probably know their lawyer and the lawyer that they've hired from Bonchenek and King. And so.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I just was saying Kristen Smith and, so, are we completely independent and we have no familiar communications?
I've had no communications. No one from the city has reached out to me. I will say that I think needing time until the end of August to respond to those requests is a bit dilatory. I think that in normal litigation, you respond in 20 to 30 days. I don't think the requests were burdensome in any respect. Most of them ask for things such as the city's gifting policy, which should be readily available. So I think that the board has been more than reasonable in extending to the end of July to give the city and their officials time to respond.
So it would be completely according to protocol if there was never any communication between a lawyer that's doing the investigation and our lawyer, yourself.
None.
Yeah. So we're not expecting any. That's all I want to,
No, I wouldn't expect any if they haven't reached out at this point.
Okay.
And part of what we did in submitting to the city, we sent the packets that we had for Svante Myrick, Karen Yearwood, and Eric Rosario to the city to forward on. And the city attorney just sent them back to us and said he wouldn't do it and did not share addresses. So we had to find out addresses. We think we have the appropriate addresses. We've sent all of the discovery materials to those people directly. But the time for them to respond has not yet run. Do we know when that time is?
It's early in August. I want to
Okay.
say around August 4th.
Okay, so they have a little bit more time to submit if they're going to. But we have certainly not seen anything from those three people yet. And part of that is because we were delayed in getting the information to them. So that's where those stand at this point. So that's the updates on the status.
So what about CPE though?
Nothing. We haven't
Okay.
received any response at
Yeah,
all.
that's what I mean, you didn't, know.
Sorry. Yeah, CPE and then all the city people have not responded.
Right, okay.
So that's the current status. Why don't we, any questions, comments?
Well, do we want a motion to do further discovery or are we going to leave that open, the chair?
Well, I think that's in item 7.
Okay,
So why don't we move to 6? Do you guys have any comments or discussion of the material we've received to date?
Rich, could I suggest that if you're going to discuss the investigation at this point, that you go into your executive session?
Okay. Well, let me ask that question. Do you think we're at a point we want to start talking about substance? Or do we want to wait until we have collected more information? It does seem like we're going to get more in the near future. And maybe have an executive session at our next meeting?
I personally don't think we have enough to have a very broad discussion. I mean, I think the people that responded so far have the least amount of involvement with the process. So, I'm not sure what we would come away with if we discuss their contributions.
Yeah.
Can I
Kathy,
just ask that everyone use their microphones when you speaking? Thanks.
yeah, I think we're at a point we probably would do better waiting a little bit longer. I would say as the chair, it's a little frustrating. I want us to go as fast as possible and get to answers because that's what we're charged to do. But at this point, yeah, we have not gotten very broad responses. So I think there's more to come.
I've expressed that previously. I think it's only fair to everyone to not have this hanging over their head for a long period of time. And the people that are not going to be asked for further information can feel relieved that that there's probably not an outstanding issue with regard to their participation. So, yeah, I don't know how we can do this to, we're not going to use subpoena power. We've not decided whether to use subpoena power or not, but it would certainly be good if people indicated a level of cooperation that we haven't seen so far.
Okay. Why don't we hold off on 6 then until we feel we're ready to have that discussion? Let's go to 7. We already talked about taking submitting a letter to the county directly rather than through Jason Molino to get that information. And again, I just put this on the table, but I don't think it's time that we want to do it. We could go into executive session and talk about issuance of subpoenas. We have a subpoena power. We need to get approval from the legislature, but we could make a request to the legislature and that would have the force of law for getting responses. I'd rather we didn't use that tool yet, but we should just have it in the back of our minds that we do have that ability if we need it. I think it's premature at this point, but we could go into executive session and talk about that issue if we wanted to. Is there any interest in that now, or do you think that awaits our further discussion as well?
I'm not familiar with that process. I'm wondering, is that a thing we would get preemptively? Like if we don't get responses, can we, can we ask the legislature to grant us permission in the event that we don't get responses?
Correct.
We can do that?
Yes.
That might save us some time.
Yeah, I don't think we're at that point yet, but yeah. And frankly, my approach, and again, you guys can disagree with me, has been to try to proceed cooperatively. That everybody we're talking to here should have an interest in good government and wanting to get a clear, transparent, flow of information as to what happened. If we don't get that, yeah, then maybe we should consider subpoenas. It's a legal process, and it's not as cooperative, but we might need to do that.
Rich, how long would it take?
Well, we'd have to decide we wanted to get it. We'd then have to submit to the legislature. They would consider it probably an executive session. They meet every 2 weeks, and would give us direction. They could say no, but that would be the process.
Okay, all right. So it could be within a 2-week period,
Yes,
once we make that decision.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
Oh, wouldn't have to go through another committee, though, that you report directly of this meeting. It wouldn't have to be handled by other entities within the county.
Typically, resolutions go through committee, but I don't believe we report to another committee, do we?
Government operations.
If you do, it would be the Government Operations Committee.
I
But
think,
I would have to look into that further.
I don't remember seeing anything in our code that would have us make the request to,
When we revised the code, we did send it through government operations, I think.
That's correct. That did happen. But as far as the advisory board, I would have to look into that further. It may just require an individual member filed resolution be submitted.
yeah, it says, the Ethics Advisory Board shall have the authority to take testimony under oath and to recommend to the Tompkins County Legislature that subpoenas be issued to compel the attendance of witnesses and to require the production of any books or records. The county legislature shall take action on any such recommendation. A majority vote of the total membership of the Tompkins County Legislature shall be required for the issuance of a subpoena by the Ethics Advisory Board. So I think it goes directly to the legislature.
And Rich, would that be a non-judicial subpoena?
I believe so.
And so that we wouldn't be able to serve that outside of New York State. So anybody that we wanted to get information from, they would have to be in.
Down here. But fortunately, everybody's here,
Okay,
pretty much, that we'd want to talk to unless they fled the state. But that would certainly indicate something to us if somebody left the state to avoid a subpoena. And one other thing I just wanted to bring up for discussion is that our job is to issue an advisory opinion. And we certainly use the information we receive, but if we believe somebody has deliberately not provided us information or been obstructive in cooperating with the advisory board, we're able to draw negative inferences from that. And so the lack of information is information to some extent. And for example, if there is an entity that just refuses to cooperate, we're able to say that we believe there's a reason for that. So there's things we can certainly do if there's a party that, won't cooperate.
Could I make a proposal? I mean, I think when we're done with this particular item, that we pull all of our discussion together in a motion. For example, I would propose if we, after sending a second friendly letter asking for cooperation, if we don't receive that or receive a reply indicating that it's forthcoming, that then we at least schedule asking the legislature for the subpoena power. We don't necessarily have to use it, but it's a tool that we have available to us, and we shouldn't not have it available when and if we need it.
Yep. At this point, we have information presumably, well, we have response deadlines coming up next week, you said, Kathy?
I believe it's next week or early into the next following week.
Okay. And if the city took my suggestion to heart and July 31st, they were going to respond, we would have that on Monday or thereabouts. So there may be the ability to have a meeting fairly soon with substantially more information in front of us. The one thing is the county, we'd want to give them sufficient time. I would hope that the county would be cooperative with the County Ethics Advisory Board, and we could get fairly quick turnaround. I say all this in connection with our next item on the agenda, scheduling our next meeting. And perhaps we could schedule that relatively soon, because we would hopefully have more information. And if we didn't, if we get nothing, we could certainly cancel the meeting. But I'd be inclined to get us on the calendar relatively quickly so we could evaluate where we are with the additional responses. Does that make sense to people? Yeah. Okay. Does everybody have their calendar? Does this time of 11 o'clock, does that work for everybody? Okay.
On Fridays,
On Fridays?
on Fridays.
All right, let's look at another Friday. I think the 5th is too soon, but maybe the 12th or the 19th?
I'll be out of town on the 12th. I'm available any day the following week. I mean, I have other things scheduled, but this would be a priority in the week of the 15th through 19th.
But the 19th would work for you, Gretchen? Sharon, Katie? The 19th at 11, Sharon?
I'm just checking. Yes, that will work.
Kathy, does that work?
Yes, it does.
All right.
And Paul, does that work
Paul?
for your schedule?
As long as you guys don't mind me doing it remote again, I will be on vacation, but I can do the 19th if you allow me to come in remotely.
I think you're doing a fine job wherever you are. So
Thank you.
that would be perfectly okay for me. Let's agree to the 19th at 11 o'clock.
So that gives people, if we extend again the time for responding, that gives people more time.
Certainly if they don't make the actual deadline, but they submit before then.
Yeah.
You know, I would certainly like all the advisory board members a chance for some time to review the materials
Right.
submitted. So,
Yeah, I mean, from what we've gotten so far, it's not been onerous, so I think it would not take too long, depending on how much they submit.
yeah. Okay, well, I hope that we'd have enough material at that point. We could go into executive session and really start deliberations. Yeah. All right. We have flown through our agenda, for better or worse. Is there any other business to come before the advisory board?
So when are we going to hear from the county attorney about the responses to
The financial stuff?
Yeah.
We need to put that into the agenda. Kathy, maybe we could do that on the 19th?
We can, sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's see if we can,
because we're late.
yes, I'd like to get that out of the way.
And the other thing was that I'd asked for us to have a little bit more formal representation of that conversation. Did you talk to the county attorney about that?
I did, and he's going to provide you with a report of all the individuals that submitted the disclosure forms.
All right, thank you so much, Kathy.
Okay. Any other business? Could I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Okay.